You know what we've done that nobody on LinkedIn can do?
What?
We got a recruiter to call us back.
Welcome to this episode of the Interim Era podcast.
Yeah,
Mark, how's it going?
it's going good. Had a interview this week. You did too. So we'll see. We're keeping going.
I think I had two of them. I still can't remember, but we'll talk about that for sure. We're coming off the tails of releasing our massively successful up the top of the charts, right above Life of a Showgirl, Taylor Swift, our Interim Era podcast last week. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And the number one piece of feedback that we received was, you guys got to talk to a recruiter.
Yeah. Actually, my favorite comment was one on one of your posts on LinkedIn. It was, we've got to get Matt a job so he can stop this podcast. And that really hit home.
Hey, I'm all for it. They said if it would be hilarious to get Matt a job to where he only gets to release one episode. And I think Mark and I both would be totally okay if, we got hired and then we could but I plan on continuing it. So
yeah, I'm considering that having a sponsor. I should probably do a quick shout out to our sponsors because, it does actually take money to run a podcast.
Oh, yeah. So shout out to my sponsor, my wife.
Yeah.
One that's bringing home the money right now.
Real MVPs are gainful employed wives. So
yes.
Tara and Katie.
Thank you.
Without you, this podcast would not exist because, electricity and Wi-Fi.
Electricity, internet, all that stuff will be down right now. So thank you both.
And shameless plug, P2 Creative. If your brand needs sharper storytelling or just a fresh set of creative eyes, hit me up on LinkedIn or p2creative.com.
Shameless plug. All right.
Always.
So here we go. Today we are welcoming the only recruiter that I know of on record that it's ever passed on my resume for a role. The one and only Mr. Erik Winkler. Erik, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, gentlemen. It sounds like since we're having this podcast, I'm not the only one who's passed on your resume, but we're here to help you kind of overcome that.
Hey, just like a real recruiter, bringing all the burns.
Because he ultimately got that role. So.
Yes,
I don't even think I need to introduce him now. They already know his credentials. He's a recruiter, as hard as that burn was just to get started. So
hey, I'm here to help you guys move up the charts. Hopefully we'll get more views this week than we did last week.
I was looking at your LinkedIn and I think you might be older than Mark. So yeah, tell us how long you've been doing this, brother.
And so actually coming up on 25, this is my 26th year in the recruiting space. Graduated college and on a Saturday and started in light industrial recruiting forklift drivers on a Monday. So haven't stopped. Love recruiting in all different ways, forms, and fashions. At first, I always said, "Why am I doing this?" But really have enjoyed working with people, working with companies, and helping solve problems. And I'm a jokester and I like to have a good time. So recruiting has been a good space there. But based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I worked with you knuckleheads before. But I think ultimately, I've had some great experiences, but also know some of the challenges that recruiting faces, and know some challenges that folks that are looking for opportunities face as well. So look forward to helping in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you're kind of in a tough role because nobody really gives credit for this, I think. You've got a job to do, right? You're ultimately the messenger. So somebody's gone out and said, hey, I need a person who fits this cookie cutter shape. And you are on this quest to find the people that are, that 95, 100% match. And that's who you got to bring back. Because you bring back somebody who's not a match for it. Mm-hmm. They're going to be irritated with you. So, and they're not going to go anywhere anyway. So
it's an interesting, component. I mean, I would say, recruiting, talent acquisition has a job just like marketing does, just like legal does, just like accounting does, right? It's just, we are kind of the starting point, right? Organizations need people. So most of the time it starts with the people process and I think we joke all the time that if it goes wrong, the finger gets pointed at TA. If it goes right, the finger gets pointed in a good way to the hiring manager. They did a great job hiring the right person. So, it certainly is not an easy job. And I'm sure folks that are listening to this, don't feel sorry for us, and that's okay. But it's a very, very difficult, fine line, based on the pressures you get from, organizations to find the right people as fast as you can and put them in place. And, but there's a human element to it as well, that you are dealing with, applicants, candidates, prospects, people that you're touching and affecting their life, as we're seeing here, right? We're having these conversations, and you guys are finding every which way you can to keep moving forward through the tough times, and do the right things.
Yeah, Erik. So you've been recruiting now for over 20 years, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
How many resumes would you guess that you've looked at in that time? And the biggest question in that is, outside of mine, do you actually remember any of them?
I remember a handful. There's no doubt, but you've seen so many. Again, it's not as many now because I'm kind of in a different, role, and I don't, focus every single day on looking at resumes, but still do, a lot of work and interaction with colleagues and network folks. And, I still try and help folks with putting resumes together and things like that. But I mean, you probably can say a million plus, in all the years, through what we're doing. Yeah.
This year alone. Yeah. And Erik, tell us a little bit about, I don't want to go into who your employer is and all that fun stuff, sure, but would love, like right now you're in the healthcare space. You have a team of recruiters. What's your day-to-day look like as a talent attraction lead?
Yeah. I think ultimately, I'm sure whether it's my team or other teams, throughout, very, very similar. I joke and say all the time, there's not enough time in the day, for these recruiters to get through what they need to get through. Most recruiters have anywhere from 20 to 30 positions, on their plate each. They're getting a boatloads of resumes. If you really break that down, guys, if say they're working 40-hour week, I'm sure many are working more. That's an hour plus a week per position to get through. And you're trying to quickly find matches. You're quickly trying to follow up, with your hiring managers, giving them updates on what's going on. There's a tremendous amount of administrative work. You're looking through resumes, you're moving them on in processes, you're following up, you're setting up interviews, you're trying to have intake / debrief calls, after interviews, you're following up with candidates, or should be. It's kind of like an air traffic controller.
How does a recruiter handle something like that, Erik? Mm-hmm. When we're seeing roles out there. Now, these are LinkedIn metrics, whatever the heck that means.
Sure.
But you'll see some roles that have 4,000 people showing up applied for it and things like that.
Yeah.
How does a recruiter even handle that when you're saying they may have, an hour or so a week to really look through those resumes?
And just to pile on that because the one of the questions we got, almost said the one question, we did get a few, so was how are you leveraging AI to go through things?
Yeah.
So, and I think that really is applicable too, because my guess is you are looking at less resumes manually and leaning on applicant tracking system and whatnot to kind of help filter.
Yeah, it's a couple prong, answer to some of that stuff. I think ultimately when you see those numbers, whether it be on LinkedIn or somewhere else, I think some of those aren't truly accurate numbers, however they come from, because there's a lot of things that, you'll think in some of the space that we deal with, a lot of it's called point and click, right? Or pay per click. There's situations like the Indeeds of the world where you're literally paying a certain amount per applicant. But that doesn't mean they actually applied. They actually clicked the button to apply. Doesn't mean they actually apply. So there's some different technology out there. But either way, there are opportunities where you might have qualifiers, in the application process where questions are being asked. They are filtered. Typically if someone, answers that in a different way that doesn't make sense of what the organization is looking for, whether it be salary, whether it be years of experience, whether it be industry. Those are situations where you may get put to the side and not in the A bucket. So there's some quick filtering there. I think in future, current as well as future state, you're going to see things like AI really work around what you would call attributes, actions that they're looking for in the resume that help screen and filter folks into stages so that the actual recruiter doesn't have to look through it, let's just say 1,000 resumes. And they're going to use AI not to screen people out, but to really help them filter. This looks like an 80% match. This looks like a 50% match. This looks like a 20% match. And then where are you going to go first? You're obviously going to go to the 80 bucket, right? So those are certainly, real hard situations. In my experience, I will say I have not used or been a part of an organization that uses an ATS that has questions that will automatically knock you out and get you an immediate rejection. That is not what it's set up for. Now, I can't say that that's not happening, with many others, especially very large organizations, that have that. So, it's a couple prong answer, guys. I mean, it's definitely technology is there. Definitely the bandwidth of the team is certainly there, just as if other departments have the same scenario.
What about the other side? So the candidates coming through where they're chat GPTing their resume to be 100% match for how are you doing that? And I think that's tough. It clogs up the pipes is my suspicion, but
I think, Mark, it's a great question. I think ChatGPT is something we'll all just continue to figure out, right? Just like my son just went off to college and they get a lot of, talk about what they should and shouldn't be doing with ChatGPT. It's something that we're trying to evolve. I think it's a great tool in many different ways. But you can certainly tell, what's being, what you would call a ChatGPT response, if someone's not paying attention to too much. And, there's some good stuff there. I think ultimately what it does, that might help filter you into say the 80% bucket. But if you get into that verbal conversation and start walking through some things, that's where you'll quickly tell, what's real and what's a really good candidate versus maybe someone that, they got through, but they're not going to get through to the next step. But I would say on the other hand, too, it's a learning experience that we have to work on with hiring managers throughout all organizations. To understand what that is. And, let's not do chat GPT for job descriptions all over the place and not know what you're really looking for either, right? To where you're sending candidates down a different scenario. It's how much time and effort are you going to put in something to really attract the right candidate that you need for your team, and not cutting corners, because what you don't want to do is have candidates out there trying to match up what you think you're looking for. And then it gets through, and then it's not even what you're looking for. And all these folks are doing things that just don't get you to the ultimate promised land of finding a role.
Absolutely. Erik, as we're kind of setting the stage here and just talking about the recruiting landscape, I think it'd be really interesting for people to understand what's on a recruiter's plate. Now, I know we were talking about how, they're recruiting for multiple different roles and, how much time they spend each week and all that. But I think there's a misconception out there that the people that are hiring for marketing roles are qualified and understand what they're looking for in a marketer or a communications person or an engineer or whatever. Is that true or is that a myth?
So I'd say this. I mean, there's a couple of different types of recruiters. So I want to address this, right? I mean, you've got your agency, your headhunter recruiters, right? And then you've got your internal talent acquisition, recruiters, and sometimes they work together. Ultimately, majority of the time when you're working with some type of headhunter recruiter, they should have a specialty, whether it's an industry or let's just say marketing, accounting, healthcare, whatever it might be. They should know their industry. They should know their business. They should know their clients, and they should really be able to dig a little bit deeper, into that applicant and into that match. When you're talking about more, kind of internal talent acquisition, if you have 5 people spread across, multiple, business functions as well as whatever might be field or sales or healthcare, They're going to have bits and pieces of it. They're going to talk to their hiring manager before they get out there, and they're going to do kind of what's called an intake conversation with that hiring manager and say, hey, I read the job description, but what's the bells and whistles? Give me the hot buttons that I need to look for. Give me the 2 or 3 questions that you think I need to be asking and what that answer should be or roughly should be in order for me to move somebody on to you, right? So I think you've got to respect talent acquisition in many ways, but you also have to understand that there are times that you're going to have some, pretty good detailed conversations, to make sure that they understand that you know what you're talking about and vice versa, because they're not, what you would call subject matter expert most of the time. And to be honest with you, in many organizations I've worked with, that same recruiter they might be having a phone screen with a marketing person, hang up, have a phone conversation with a salesperson, hang up, have a conversation with a physician, hang up, and something else, right? So you're going from different skill set to different skill set. And I think that's just the nature of the business. And certainly, however we can continue to evolve those conversations and making sure people understand that. And that's the role of TA.
Yeah.
Does that help? Does that help a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think, until I really got to know you and we became friends and kind of really learned what your team's doing, I always assumed that, and some big organizations do have that, right? They do have,
sure.
If they have a massive marketing team or a massive communications team, they might have a business partner that just recruits for their team, but it's very, very rare.
Where I see it the most is IT. I mean, technical, technology positions. It's very, very, it's so specific and so detailed and niche that, there are more times that, you'll even see out there, if you just happen to, Google search jobs, talent acquisition, you'll see more technical recruiters versus say corporate recruiters. Corporate's going to have mostly everything. Technical is going to be your IT, folks. But otherwise, I mean, there's just not enough positions in most organizations to have a specialty, right? You're not going to have a marketing recruiter. You're not going to have an accounting recruiter because they're not going to do enough throughout the year to warrant that FTE number.
If you do, it's probably a red flag because it's a
right. Yeah.
They're really good at hiring marketing people, but they only have 5 marketing people.
Over and over.
But they leave every 6 months. They're not onboarded well or something's wrong. It's just not working. But but I think it's a good point. It's, I think TA gets a bad name. There's no doubt about that, but I think TA can do a way better job. A lot of recruiters can do a better job for, the name of the space. I think understanding the human element, simple responses, is better than nothing. I know there's a lot out there about ghosting and not hearing back. That's tough for what I call our skill set, because I think there's a lot of really, really good, recruiters out there that take that to heart. But there's way more recruiters today than there was 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's almost like how many McDonald's you see on every corner. It's just becoming too much.
Yeah, and they're going through a massive transition period now too, because if you look at statistics, recruiters are feeling the crunch as well. They've hit massive layoffs. And there are not many TA jobs that are out there right now that fill those people that are looking. So I know that recruiters are seeing that as well.
Yeah, Mark, something resonated with me with your first podcast. I think you mentioned something about handful of years ago. You'd have a job in a month, a couple weeks. You'd put out 3 and you would get at least 1 job offer, and you never worried or were concerned. Like if something didn't work out, connections, people, jobs, like confident it could go like that, right? And not so much this time around. And I constantly am telling folks, like, it's different today than it was before. But the more you grow, the more that's going to be. Right. Yeah. I feel the same way. Like if I was just a recruiter like 15 years ago, I was as confident as could be. If you guys don't like me, I'm not doing a good job, I'll go over here. I don't feel that same way now. I mean, it's different, certainly different leveling. But there's only so many opportunities, out there today for certain levels versus what there was before.
Hitting the dreaded overqualified filter. Like that's a real thing.
It is, and that's just a supply and demand thing, right? Unfortunately, there's more people out there than are certain jobs, and they're going to use that as a qualifier. They're worried that someone's going to just take a job to take a job, and once the market turns around, they're going to be out the door. And that's not everybody's situation, but it is something that certainly does come up.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some hot takes.
Yeah,
hot takes. Hot takes. All right, Erik, I want to get into your head, into your brain. It's actually better than you getting into mine. Okay, so let's get into your brain. I want to know what a recruiter thinks, right? So these will be some quick hitters, and let's see how you do. All right, when you're skimming a resume, what's the first thing you actually look at, and what makes you toss it aside?
Here's another one that came in. What can I do to stand out?
Yeah.
A couple things that I look at real quickly, right? I'm looking for new kind of modern thought processes versus what you would call old school, typical resume setup, right? An objective is so old, right? What's the skill set? What are the main things, like right away? If I'm looking at, let's say, an operations manager, like in that first couple bullet points, I want to understand, is this person really an operations manager? Are there a couple key takeaways, highlights from that? And then I'm quickly scanning current. Where are they? Is it similar to what we're looking for? What is ultimately the tenure in that spot? And then is there any red flags that might jump up, right? Are they short term in many different spots? If it's a contract role, it should say contract so I can see that, versus, constant short term, movement. I will tell you, toss aside, if something's more than 3 pages, I probably can't even digest it. I'm moving on. 1 page, probably not unless you're a new grad. But those are just a couple of, things. If you have a really weird email address, I'm going to be funny about it. That's probably not the best thing. There are some email addresses that probably should be kept for, personal reasons versus business reasons. And those are some things that just kind of, come out in some fun. But key objectives. Is this person, right what I'm looking for, meaning, right, bullet point format versus what you would call old school objective? Where are they at? Is it anything relative to what we're doing? Looking at some of the tenure and going from there.
Mark's his resume is written on a stone tablet due to his. I'm not trying to push ageism here, but he did have to carve it into a stone tablet. Is that okay? And how many tablets is too much?
Maybe, as long as it's not 4 pages. The other interesting thing is more and more people seem to be putting their picture on their resume, and I'm just not really a fan of that. I don't really want anyone, making decisions based on an appearance, of somebody's picture. So I think that's something that I try and stay away from is, why are we doing that? Why is that on there? What's the point of it? I know that's something that certainly people kind of go back and forth on. Mark, you're a creative guy, right? So I even remember in your podcast talking about, having your portfolio and having a little bit more creative resume back in the day to what you're doing now. To get through some of these scenarios, you're probably not looking at kind of a fancy, multicolored, document anymore, right? It's probably more of a basic, put together, leadership, creative, resume versus what it may have been a few years ago. And that's probably the smart way to go.
It is, but I do keep it to 1 page.
I like it.
More than 20 years experience. And that's tough to pare it down. So, obviously I just include the most recent positions and achievements on that. So
yeah,
I wouldn't go above 1 page just because, it's got to be simply formatted. So it does, appeal to an ATS.
Yeah. I mean, everything's trying to be dumbed down. I totally get it because of the system. I think we got to be careful. You still want to make sure that you've got what I would call modern, clean, that's got, kind of a couple key facts, achievements, accomplishments, that make it stand out. Just don't make it read like it's a LinkedIn profile, and I think you'll be fine. Nobody wants to see a match to match,
Well, I said it in wingdings, so you get to decode it. It's a little bit of fun activity.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next hot take. Hot take. Erik, if my picture was on my resume in 2019, would you have still tossed it in a trash can?
Yes, I would have moved it to the side.
Okay, cool. All right, next hot take. Be honest. Do recruiters really read cover letters? Or are they like the
No.
kale of job searching? Good for
No.
you, but nobody cares. They don't
Well, why
read.
did they
No.
require them on so many?
I couldn't tell you the last time I read a cover letter. It's still actually, as a TA professional, it kind of, if I see a job posting out there that asks for a cover letter, it just, I don't know. It's old school. I don't understand the reason for it. To me, maybe they're just looking for information that they should specifically be asking, probably in a phone conversation in certain ways. But you know, 10 plus years since I've actually looked at one, cared about one, thought it was relevant to the actual application / person's experience. And today, I know we're talking hot takes, and I'm probably talking too much, but here's the deal. In today's day and age, ChatGPT is probably writing them anyway. So what's the purpose of looking at them?
So, all right. You've hired everyone from entry level, right?
Yeah,
All the way up
yeah.
to executives.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest mistake that you see people on both ends, entry level and exec level? What's the biggest mistake you see them make?
Probably can say a few. I'm trying to think of a hot take right away. I think the not following directions is probably really key, right? Like if you're going to give someone, say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you in the next 2 to 3 days or by Friday, following that person following up before that deadline. I understand if the deadline might pass and you want to follow up, give the folks, some space to kind of give the opportunity to follow up the way they say they do and then kind of react. I think over aggressive, and some of that is just a really big turnoff for most people.
Do LinkedIn in messages actually work?
Oh, and to pile on that, what do you do when somebody tries to connect with you as a recruiter?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can probably talk about LinkedIn a few different ways. I would just say this. I mean, LinkedIn's changed so much over the years for both sides. For internal, understand they're really going and have been for years going towards, another, job board / mini ATS. And it's a struggle. There's more garbage on there than there is good, in some sense, and it's changed a lot. But it's a necessary evil. I think it's a great tool when used appropriately. I do try and connect with folks. People do reach out to me a lot right now when they see postings, and a lot of times if it's appropriate, I'll let them know I'm not the right guy and here's the person you should connect with. Meaning I may not be the recruiter on that rec, but they may have seen that I, shared a position or I'm a lead in an organization in talent acquisition. And I'll try and at least give them some info. If it's not, I'll just say, here's the link, apply, but it piles up. I mean, I probably have over 100 invite, requests in my LinkedIn right now that I haven't got to. If it comes through real quick and it looks like someone that absolutely I should connect with, I'm accepting. If I don't accept right away, I go back to it later and see if it's someone that really would bring value to my network. But in my situation, as well as many TA, I will tell you that over half of what I get is sales. People trying to sell something to me. A staffing agency, a background check vendor, an ad agency, something that's relevant to this. And immediately, if I accept, the next thing that comes is a sales pitch. So it's become a scenario where not a lot of TA folks are going to respond unless they really feel like it's someone that they need to talk to, because the consistent sales pitch going through that is very, very difficult to keep up with.
What about I forget what it is, but on LinkedIn Premium, you can mark a job as like, this is the job I want. You do that.
Oh yeah. Does that crap even work? Where it's like, tell this employer that I'm super excited about this, or this is my top job. Do you even see that crap?
I'm not on LinkedIn every day to be able to say yes or no. I'm sure it may work. I'm not sure, how appropriate it is, because anyone can just click that. So is that real? I do actually.
But you only get 3 a month, Eric. You need to know that.
Part of the LinkedIn application process, the apply on LinkedIn. So.
Oh, well, I mean, the premium's gone up tremendously, what they're charging versus what they did years ago. So hopefully they're bringing a little bit more value to the individual that's using it. But, I'd say this, I do like when people if they are unemployed and looking for an opportunity. I do like that they say they're open for work. I do like when talent acquisition people put up that they're hiring and they share. And I think there's some good connectivity from that works. There's I do wish that more talent acquisition people would, put their name attached to the postings that they're working on and give folks an opportunity to get human. I think that's what TA is missing right now, is kind of that human element. Hey, I am a recruiter. Yeah, I am working on this job, and you guys work together, right? I mean, and don't be afraid to say you're not a fit based on this. I think a lot of the folks that are looking for opportunities just want connectivity. They just want to hear something, right? And it may not be what they want to hear, but they're sick of going into the filter. They're sick of being ghosted. They're sick of not getting a response. And I think that could be done better.
So Matt and I have both removed the open to work on our profile.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. One, sure. It doesn't seem to do any good except for to get a lot of spam.
Spam, yeah.
Spam. And more people trying to sell us resume reviews or that kind of thing.
Some people use it, right?
Yeah, so when you see it, Eric, I haven't used it. I haven't used it because I haven't looked for a job to put that on there or need to.
But you can put the hiring tag on there.
But I use the hiring tag and certainly have enjoyed seeing some of that. Now again, you're right. I'll get a lot of spam and recruiters reaching out saying, "Oh, I can help you, hire for that job." So I get that. I don't know what type of spam you guys are saying. I can see the resume writers and things like that, but you've got to learn just to delete and move on. That's
just so when you see the open to hire banner, you're not thinking of me as some dude standing along the road saying I need a job or I got tickets like you're going to a ball game.
Because that's the other thing. So there was a post on LinkedIn that I read, and it got a lot of traction. It was a recruiter who had said, if I see open to work on there, why would I hire that person? That's somebody else's trash that I don't want to deal with. Very heartless. For somebody who's in the field, I thought, wow, you just don't get it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. That's probably being a little aggressive. I think everyone's, got a very different circumstance. I think, people that have it out there and that are begging for a job every day, maybe there's a scenario there, but there's a very professional way to go about it and have it on there. You guys, there's a handful of people that I know that are exceptional at their job. They're great humans. They're great at their skill set and what they do. They're good leaders. They've just been impacted by change somehow, some way. And any company would be lucky to have them. There's 4 or 5 people that I'm staying connected to right now from, my past experience, trying to help as much as I can, because I know for a fact I'd put my name on them and say, that's a really good person. That's a really talented individual. So there's a lot of good people out there.
I appreciate that. And, but like Matt, what was it? 40% of the entire workforce will experience a layoff at some point. There's that. Then you've got the stats of Conference Board saying that they're slowing hiring. And there's some more layoffs.
Yeah.
So it's gonna.
I read some. Yeah. It's a tough time, guys. I mean, this more than I do. Right now, but I mean, I read something this morning that talked about. They and listen. There's the myth of fourth quarter, right? End of the year, nobody hires. I think there's half companies that believe that, and there's other halves that take absolutely advantage of that, and they're trying to really get focused and do the right things. But to see national numbers where they do believe that they're, I think it was 2 out of 5 people they asked in a leadership role, so that they're actually going to decrease their mindset around hiring, the remainder of the year. I thought that was pretty heavy. That's what, 40%.
Even the national statistics, right, are saying things like people are not buying new houses right now, and they're not leaving jobs. Like, even if they're unhappy, they're staying in roles right now because of just uncertainties, which means there's less roles opening up as well.
I do think that there's something we've got to talk about and think about, in a bigger picture too, that is kind of the, in-person versus remote, type opportunities, workforces, et cetera. Something I think about a lot, from a candidate standpoint that I miss is there's lack of in-person interviews. I couldn't tell you the last time I actually scheduled to meet somebody in person. for one of our hiring managers to meet in person. Yes, if it's a very senior position, you might be moving them around and things, but gosh, I remember back in the day, we literally everything was coming in the office. You're going to see such and such at the front desk, introduce yourself, and then she's going to get us, and we're going to have collaborative panel interviews. That doesn't really happen much anymore. If there is a panel interview, it's extremely overwhelming, as a candidate to have 2, 3, 4, 5 people on the screen that you're trying to follow and communicate with and work with. So I think that's something that we've got to think about, not just short term, but long term. Like, how is that going to affect the interview process? How is that going to affect our ability to judge, whether this candidate is a good fit or not? Because Matt, if you're in person, it's so much different than on camera.
100%.
Right? I mean, I know you're funny on camera, but I mean, you
should see me in person.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of those things. So, I do bring that up for you guys to, maybe it's something that we can, talk about in another, standpoint. But I do think people are having less success because it's so much focused on, these videos versus in-person handshakes and real conversations.
Well, and people are multitasking during interviews, and I can tell that. I'm sure you can tell it on the candidate side as well.
Well, they're not prepared, guys. I mean, that's the one thing that you probably can see too. Like, if you're working remote, so many times these folks are back to back to back, and they might be coming off a call about budget, and all of a sudden they're supposed to be immediately hanging up and then getting on a call with you to do an interview about a director or VP job, and they didn't even have a chance to literally change their mindset to then get positioned, ready to really focus on a good interview conversation with you. And I think that's a huge challenge that you as the applicants, are facing right now, that has to get better for a better experience. But
they're getting pinged on Teams, they're getting emails all during it. And
it's nonstop.
It's tough. It's funny you mentioned the in-person thing, because I had a local interview yesterday.
Okay.
Local.
Okay.
What?
And it was virtual. It was virtual. Yeah, there are people in West Virginia that hire. It's crazy. But I could have walked there, but it was virtual, which I thought was crazy, because when I got the interview request, I looked and I was like, oh, this has got to be in person. And then I was like, holy crap, what am I going to wear? Because I haven't been on site in 5 years. I don't have a suit anymore or anything. My wife gives me crap for not wearing khaki pants to church. I usually just wear shorts. So, I'm like, what am I going to wear? So there was like a scared moment there. But then when I realized, I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, from a candidate standpoint, I'm like, man, I could, like you were saying, make more impact if and have probably a better conversation if it's in person. But yeah, the remote pieces, I can't remember the last time. Well, the last time probably was in 2019 when I was, Erik, when you so graciously hired me, that I actually went in person for an interview.
Let's get this correct. Erik didn't hire you. Someone at a higher level who you reported to. Because there's also that continued misconception. TA does not hire. TA helps the process.
You just open the door.
Yeah, but we get the blame. I get it. But again, we can talk about it for a while, but I truly believe that some people don't consider that. And, I think it's something that is a big challenge for a lot of different people at a lot of different skill levels. It's not easy to pop this thing open and have a real professional conversation and feel like you hit it out of the park and you're moving on.
All right, I got a couple more quick questions for you. If someone listening is applying right now to a job, what's the number one thing that you believe they could do to stand out in a crowded field?
Apply for jobs that make sense for your background. I think that, very, very blunt about that, right? There's no way. You just brought up a couple minutes ago about, LinkedIn says 4,000 applies or applications. No, there's no way there's 4,000 people that are, obviously qualified for that job. So I know there's a lot of interest in trying to get your name out there as many times as possible. But it can't be a numbers game. It's got to be a quality game, right? If you really see something that makes sense, apply for it. Again, there is a lot of people that just point and click and send the resumes. You'd be amazed, and maybe not, because I probably shared some with you in the past when we worked together, at what actually applies, for certain jobs. And I think that is a frustration point that takes it out on maybe good applicants, because there is so much volume.
So if you see 4,000 on a job, if you're looking at LinkedIn, you see that 4,000 people have applied, apply for it anyway. If you're actually qualified for it, apply for it anyway.
100%. If you feel in your heart that you have the qualifications based on that job description and what they say they're looking for, and you, whether it's remote, in person, salary range, et cetera, that stuff fits for you, apply. Absolutely.
How often are you guys going back? And because there's a myth too out there that, hey, if I don't apply for this role within the first 24 hours, there's no use for me even applying for it. It's gone. Like it's down the river. Like, is that really the one shot? What do you see, Erik?
Now, listen, if it's open for 30 plus days, I think it's probably down the river. I would not say 24 hours. I bet you that, the talent acquisition person hasn't even looked in the first 24 hours, at some of the applications.
You mean you don't hit post and then sit there and just watch?
No, we're not sitting there.
Come in first.
We're not sitting there at the dinner table, watching for applications to come in and automatically hit the reject button. But I would say, again, if it's within the first 2 weeks, absolutely hurry up and apply. If it's anywhere from that 2 weeks to 30 days, you may get caught up in kind of a secondary scenario because they may already been screening the first wave of folks that they feel is a good fit.
You don't have a big reject button in your office that you hit.
Office was it Office or Staples used to have that? Was
the easy button.
No, we don't have the easy button anymore. No.
All right, let's get to the real important question.
Yeah.
You've hired both Mark and me. I know you didn't hire us, you screened us. Who is the better hire?
Well,
keep in mind, without me, there is no Mark. So I just want to
I was just going to say, in the situation of how we met, like no one had a say. Matt C, and again, this is a scenario that happens throughout, organizations across the country, right? It's who you know. You really find a comfort level with someone that feels that their skill set, they could do a good job. They fit in with what you're looking for. And there are times leaders, when they have an open position, they tend to try and find someone that they're, comfortable with. They feel like they can come in and really hit the ground running and, help lead what they're trying to do. And that's teams. So listen, Mark's great. I like Mark. I really enjoy working with Mark.
But it's a really long way to say me. I get it. Mark, any rebuttal or are you good?
Listen, I think you just picked me.
I just listen, Matt.
If the question comes down to who did more for Erik, I think it's probably Mark Palmer.
That's just because you're with him longer.
I would set up a meeting with Matt, but then he would tell Mark to help me. So, it's just kind of how it worked. It's all good. You're both incredible. Mark, I've had the pleasure of doing some more, hands-on dirty work to get things done. Matt, you've helped me with strategy and different things. You're both great. But if I had to go down a path where I really need to get something done by tomorrow, I'd probably be bringing Mark.
Yikes. All right. I hope any potential employer of mine has stopped listening by this point.
I already said that you were great. You're phenomenal. But you asked me to compare you to Mark and getting some things done. So I'm going to my creative guy over here.
All right. Well, I know how to GSD, get stuff done, and handing it to Mark is how you get stuff done. That's for sure.
Wow.
All right, Erik, last one for you. You've been in this game for 20 years.
Yeah.
Candidates actually getting better, or are we all just finding new ways to just completely mess it up?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're all trying to find ways, we're all finding ways to mess it up, and we're getting away from what you would call really, really good traditional, meeting and greeting connections, finding opportunities, and making it happen. But I will tell you, not to be long-winded again, but I think companies out there are messing it up just as much as candidates, and that's the muddy mess that we're left with right now. When you rely on systems and technologies and speed and all that, you tend to miss things. And certainly you can miss a really, really good candidate. And that's just a fact.
Well, Erik, it's been an absolute joy hanging out with you again, brother. Oof. I appreciate it.
I don't know if I helped y'all, and maybe it kind of brought up some more questions. But it's tough out there. I would tell everyone, and I know in the future you're probably going to look at kind of the mental health aspect and staying positive. And, it's not easy. The one thing I will tell you is every time I, meet someone new or having a network conversation, that first impression is still very, very key, and being, focused and, good energy and great attitude and have interest in the conversation that you're in. So, that mental health space, and every time that you get ready to have a call, or try and give yourself time in between calls if you're doing back to back, so that you're really, really focused and ready to go. But it's a tough journey, I feel for some really good people out there, and everyone just help each other, because that's all we got to do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Next episode, we're going to be talking mental health.
Okay.
We have a actual primary care provider that spent many years at the Cleveland Clinic. Mark and I have both worked with her. Eric, you've worked with her.
Awesome.
She's been a chief medical officer and all of that at some companies, and we're going to talk to her all about mental health.
Man, you guys are fun. I wish you the best. I hope things continue to go, in a I'd say better direction, because you're both still here talking to me. But anyone that's listening to this, these two guys are awesome. They're great people. They're great humans. They're really good at their job. Reach out to them, network with them, and help each other out. It's I appreciate you both, and you've been a blessing to my career in some way, shape, or form.
Thanks. Awesome. Man. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
For Mark, I'm Matt. This has been the Interim Era. We'll be back next time with episode 3.
Have you ever passed on a resume?
I passed on Matt's.
Eric passed on my resume.
He was fortunate that I had a leader that was helping, that was a West Virginia grad. And he's like, whoa, this resume looks great. We got to bring Matt in.